I was just taking shelter from the rain by the roadside when I unexpectedly found a girl in a wheelchair. At first, I thought she needed help, but she just kept staring at me nervously. After hesitating for a long time, she carefully pulled out an old, beat-up piggy bank. I don't have a family anymore. Could you be my family? Can I use this money to buy 2 days of your time? Even 1 day is fine. Looking at her hopeful face, I was about to say no. My parents had suddenly passed away. Then my boss fired me. When my longtime girlfriend found out, she broke up with me. Even my landlord kicked me out. And the $137 in my wallet was all the money I had left in this unfamiliar city. I stood in the pouring rain, on the verge of breaking down. But then I suddenly felt something poke the back of my head. I turned around and saw a slender hand, so pale I could almost see the veins beneath it, awkwardly holding up an umbrella as if trying to shield me from the rain. Only after turning around did I realize it belonged to a girl in a wheelchair. She was thin and frail, with pale cheeks, but even her messy hair couldn't hide her delicate features. Half of her body was soaked from the rain, but she didn't care. She stubbornly kept trying to hold the umbrella over me. Seeing her struggle to stand up and shield me from the rain, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly at myself. I never thought I'd sink so low that a disabled girl would have to worry about me. But before I could bend down and thank her, she slowly began rolling backward. Only then did I realize we were on a slope. With no time to worry about the umbrella I'd tossed aside, I took off after her. Every time she tried to stop the wheelchair with her hands, her struggling only made it roll faster. Luckily, I grabbed the wheelchair just in time. But the umbrella went flying from the momentum and landed right on her head. It made her look like a little demon on wheels. I quickly lifted off the mushroom-shaped cover and checked on her. "Are you okay?" Still dazed, the girl shook her head. "Hey kid, what are you doing out here alone so late?" I regretted asking as soon as the words left my mouth. Why did that sound like something a creepy old man would say? Sure enough, she seemed to go into defense mode. Like a frightened kitten, she shrank back into her wheelchair. "I was just out for a walk. You should hurry home. Your family must be worried." I don't have a family. My grandma passed away yesterday." Just as I realized I'd asked something I shouldn't have, another frightening thought crossed my mind. How could a disabled girl survive without any family? But that wasn't something I needed to worry about. After all, I could barely support myself. Maybe it was out of guilt, but I decided to take her home myself. After wheeling her into the elevator, I turned to leave. But then the girl reached out and tugged at the hem of my shirt. "You'll get cold in the rain." I smiled to myself. This girl got incredibly nervous just talking to people, yet she was still worried about someone else getting caught in the rain. "How about you lend me your umbrella? We can meet tomorrow, and I'll give it back. Go on home. It's late. Be careful you don't run into someone dangerous." The girl looked even more frightened, but her fingers stubbornly refused to let go of my shirt. I understood. This was her clumsy way of asking me to stay, so I decided to see it through and take her upstairs before leaving. But when I finally reached the top floor, I realized the girl's home wasn't there. It was even higher up, on the rain-soaked rooftop. There was no ramp or lift, only steep concrete steps, slick with rain, and stretching into the darkness. I couldn't imagine how much courage it had taken this girl, who couldn't use her legs, to make her way downstairs. Luckily, the girl was very light. I easily carried her and her wheelchair up to the rooftop. After unlocking the door, I immediately saw a black and white portrait in the middle of the living room. The elderly woman in the photo had a kind smile, but several bags of trash were still piled up by the entrance. Cleaning was already difficult enough for her, let alone taking the trash downstairs. But the more I understood her situation, the more confused I became. Why would such a timid girl go out alone in the middle of the night? Just as I turned to leave, the girl suddenly spoke up timidly and asked me in confusion, "We're home. Why are you leaving?" Her question made me freeze. But when I looked at her, the innocence in her eyes drove away any improper thoughts. Only then did I realize that she clearly didn't understand social boundaries. She had no idea how dangerous it was to bring a strange man home. So I sternly explained how dangerous it was to bring strangers home, especially a man she knew nothing about, like me. Like a child who had done something wrong, she immediately grew nervous. "I haven't. You're the first. And I'm an adult. I have an ID." Only that last sentence came out perfectly smoothly. That's not the point. I deliberately put on a stern expression. "This isn't about whether you're an adult. Promise me you won't bring strange men home again." After I finished speaking and turned to leave, she tugged at my shirt again. "If you don't leave, then it won't count as bringing a stranger home." I sighed. It wasn't just how hard it was to communicate with her that bothered me. Her loneliness also hit painfully close to home. But I'm no saint. Besides, she was a defenseless young woman. There was no telling when my dark side might take over. One ruined life was enough. At least I couldn't let the maggots crawl onto someone else. "Listen, I know you need someone to stay with you right now. But even if I stay today, what about tomorrow? What about the day after that? I need to make money to support myself. I can't stay here forever. I know this sounds harsh, but you have to learn to face things on your own." As I watched her head sink lower and lower, I realized I'd been a little too harsh. "Look, it's not like I have some rich woman supporting me. I'm barely getting by myself. How about we talk about this when I'm back on my feet?" To my surprise, her eyes suddenly lit up. She hurriedly wheeled herself into the bedroom. Before long, she came back clutching a battered old piggy bank. "I'll support you. This is all I have. How many days will it cover?" Her voice grew quieter. She clearly knew it wasn't even enough to support me, but she stubbornly kept holding out the piggy bank. Seeing her put everything she had on the line, I didn't know what to say, but I also realized how serious the situation was. This might be all the money she had left. If I just left her like this, even if she starved to death in this apartment, no one might ever find her. So I asked her seriously, "Where are your parents? You have to tell me the truth. Mom and Dad don't want me anymore. They went abroad, and I can't reach Grandma either." My tone scared her so much that she trembled, but she still stammered out an answer. A deep sense of helplessness suddenly washed over me. When I still didn't respond, she stubbornly held up the piggy bank again. Her arms were already getting sore, but she kept her eyes fixed on me. "I'll pay you to stay for 2 days. Even 1 day is fine. People can't be bought or sold." "They can't? But Mom always said she'd sell me." Her words pierced my heart like a rusty nail. I wanted nothing more than to beat her awful parents senseless. She seemed to find the answer in my silence. At that moment, all the emotions she'd kept bottled up finally came pouring out. "I'm sorry. I was scared." Huge tears fell onto her numb legs. The sight left me completely stunned. Okay, stop crying. Can't we just talk this out?" To my surprise, those words worked like a pause button, and she immediately stopped crying. Her tears kept streaming down, and she even started pouting. She looked more like a cute, "I'm super mad" meme. Anyone who saw us would have thought I was the bad guy. Finally, I ran out of options. "Fine. So, what do you need me to do?" I want something to eat." "That's it?" Honestly, I'd already braced myself before I asked, but all she wanted was to eat with me. "Is that not okay? It's just a meal. You should have said so sooner. Is there any food in the house?" "Carrots and eggs. Oh, and there's rice in the rice cooker." After saying that, she timidly lowered her head. Seeing the guilty look on her face, I didn't think much of it and assumed her social anxiety was acting up. Without another word, I headed to the kitchen to make the egg fried rice I had in mind. But once I got there, I found that aside from a range hood, there were only a few eggs and some wilted carrots in the corner, plus 2 pots that had seen better days. The kitchen was so bare it was heartbreaking. Fortunately, all the basic seasonings were there. Making some simple golden fried rice would be easy. But when I confidently opened the rice cooker, I found a whole gray forest of mold growing inside, and the rice underneath was hard enough to use as a weapon. I took a deep breath and started looking for the culprit. Then I spotted someone quietly turning her wheelchair around, ready to sneak back to her room. "Stop right there." She instantly froze, wanting to flee but not daring to. All she could do was look at me pitifully. The look on her face made me laugh, despite how mad I was. "Come explain this to me. You call this day-old rice? You never asked how many days old it was. Tell me the truth. How many days has this been sitting here?" 3 or 4 days. "Wow. You managed to grow a perfect mold culture in just 3 or 4 days? It's the rice cooker's fault. It wouldn't behave." Hearing her mutter that pathetic excuse, I could only accept my bad luck. But halfway through washing the pot, I suddenly realized something even more alarming. "How many days has it been since you last ate?" She lowered her head, and right on cue, her stomach growled. Then, it all made sense. The poor girl was absolutely starving. Once I realized that, I wasted no time and scrubbed the pots and dishes spotless. Meanwhile, she waited patiently in the living room, occasionally peeking in at me, or more precisely, at the rice cooker. About 20 minutes later, I came out with a pan full of delicious-smelling fried rice. But then I realized there wasn't even a table to eat at. As if by magic, the girl pulled out a folding table and a heat-resistant mat. I handed her a spoon. She eagerly scooped up a huge bite and put it straight into her mouth without even blowing on it. "Hot, hot, hot. What's the rush? No one's going to take it from you." Then I tried a bite myself. It wasn't bad. To my surprise, she suddenly went quiet when she heard that. Then she lowered her head and started eating even faster. At first, I thought she was just starving, but halfway through the meal, tears suddenly started streaming down her face. Yet, she never stopped eating. "Why are you crying again? Did I not clean the pan well enough? Did the food make her sick?" I completely panicked. But she smiled through her tears and explained as she wiped them away. "I'm okay. You just reminded me of Grandma. She always used to say that too." I was about to say something else when her warm smile stopped me in my tracks. At that moment, much of the gloom in my heart faded away. I had to admit, I was starting to fall for her a little. "No, no!" I slapped myself across the face, but that startled her. After calming her down, I decided I'd leave once I taught her how to take care of herself. So I asked her where she went to school. After all, at her age, she should have at least finished middle school. But she seemed very sensitive about the subject. She lowered her head and stayed silent for a long time before answering softly. "I only made it to 9th grade. My classmates were always making fun of me, and it really upset me. So Grandma stopped making me go. But I really could have handled it." I let out a long sigh. She had spent so long at home, cut off from the outside world. Even her grandmother, the only person who truly cared for her, had passed away. Forget basic social skills. Her emotional development might still be stuck at the age when she dropped out. I realized going back to school wasn't really an option for her. "What about community assistance? Has your family ever received any?" I don't know. Just as I was getting a headache because she couldn't answer any of my questions, she suddenly interrupted my thoughts. Could I draw a picture of you? I'm afraid you'll leave and never come back." Before she even finished speaking, she wheeled herself back to her room. Curious, I followed her. But the moment I opened the door, I felt like I'd stepped into a magical starry sky filled with color. But there was still a blank area near the ceiling. I guess that was as high as she could reach from her wheelchair. I love painting. The moment she started talking about painting, her eyes filled with confidence. But I couldn't imagine how hard it must have been for her to paint on the walls. She simply pulled out her sketchbook with a cheerful smile. Her bright eyes blinked as they darted back and forth between me and the paper. In less than half an hour, she finished my portrait. I took the sketchbook from her slightly trembling hands. But the moment I saw the drawing, I froze. It showed me crouching in the rain at night, holding a plate of egg fried rice. A little white cat was pawing at my pant leg, gazing longingly at the fried rice. I never expected this was how she saw me. But where did this kitten come from? She didn't answer my question. Instead, she snatched the sketchbook back in a flash. But I still noticed that her ears were bright red with embarrassment. That was when I realized the cat was supposed to be her. Without thinking, I glanced at the top of her head, wondering if she really had cat ears. Instead, I was met with a puzzled, wary stare. She shrank even farther back into her wheelchair. To keep things from getting awkward, I quickly changed the subject. Can I see some of your other drawings? Here, this is Grandma Zhang from downstairs. Whenever I used to sneak out, I'd often see Grandma Zhang standing downstairs and waving at me. And this is Grandpa Li. He's a carpenter. Grandpa Li made my old wheelchair for me. I continued flipping through the sketchbook and found all kinds of people who had helped her or crossed paths with her. Every one of them had been drawn in this little sketchbook. It was less of a sketchbook and more of a heartwarming diary filled with adorable drawings. Then I got an idea and pulled out my phone to check illustration commission rates online. Most commissions paid around 30 to 50 yuan each, but that could still be enough for her to support herself. So I found a chibi profile picture online and asked if she could draw something like it. She nodded slightly, but she only knew how to draw on paper. That wouldn't work. We'd need to buy at least a drawing tablet so she could practice digital art first. Luckily, an entry-level drawing tablet only cost a little over 100 yuan online, which was still within my budget. I also had an old laptop gathering dust at home that she could use for now. I was worried she didn't have a phone, but luckily, she said she did. But then she pulled an ancient relic out of her pocket, an incredibly outdated PHS phone. And just like that, my last shred of hope died. Will this work? We'd have to deal with the phone later. After all, I could barely afford to feed myself, so I couldn't afford to take such a big risk on this plan. And there was no guarantee she'd even get any commissions. Honestly, at that moment, I thought about giving up. But then I saw the light still shining in her eyes. I gritted my teeth and thought, screw it. Let's live. My life was already a mess, so why couldn't I be reckless for once? Then I suddenly remembered the apartment my parents had rented before they died. There were still 2 weeks left on the lease, but I should be able to get the 3,000 yuan deposit back. Tomorrow, I'd ask the community office about financial assistance for her, and then find myself another job. If I watched every penny, I should be able to support both of us for a month or two. The rest depended on what she wanted. Do you want to earn enough to feed yourself with your art? Her firm answer instantly put me at ease. So I decided to head back and clean up the old apartment first. But as I was leaving, she tugged at the corner of my shirt again. Will you come back tomorrow? I will. Seeing how nervous she looked, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. At least she hadn't asked me to stay the night. Then, my name is Summer. What's yours? Autumn. Early the next morning, I called the landlord to get the deposit back. Maybe because he'd heard what happened to my parents. The landlord even refunded the remaining 2 weeks' rent. After that, I went to the shopping district and found a job at a print shop that paid 3,000 yuan a month. By the time I finished everything, it was already noon. Only then did I remember the hungry little mushroom spirit waiting at home. So I rushed back to her apartment. But the moment I stepped out of the elevator, I smelled something burning. Realizing something was wrong, I raced over and pounded on the door. Luckily, the door opened from the inside a moment later. A cloud of black smoke immediately billowed out of the room. There was a little menace in a wheelchair at the door, coughing her lungs out. Her eyes darted around like a child who'd done something wrong. You're back. Seeing that she was okay, I was both shocked and relieved. I rushed into the kitchen and shut off the smoking rice cooker. When I lifted the lid, I was speechless. The pot had boiled completely dry, and the bottom was burned black. I turned around and caught the little mushroom spirit trying to sneak away. Care to explain what happened here? I just wanted to try cooking, but I was afraid you'd see me mess it up. Then I hesitated for so long that I forgot about it. I gritted my teeth in frustration. If I hadn't arrived in time, there was no telling how much trouble she would have caused. Autumn, if you ever cook again, I swear I'll cook you instead. But the moment I saw Autumn's hurt expression, my anger vanished. Go on, get some fresh air. I'll call you when the food's ready. Autumn murmured okay and wheeled herself out of the kitchen. After the meal, Autumn wheeled herself out of the kitchen. After the meal, Autumn rubbed her slightly rounded belly. She'd actually eaten much less than most people. She just got full very easily. Seeing this, I couldn't resist teasing her. Look how round your belly is. Want to go out for some fresh air and help digest your food? Autumn nodded obediently, but once she realized what I'd said, she quickly covered her belly. My belly isn't round. I noticed that although she still spoke slowly, she didn't stumble over her words as much as before. So I told Autumn to bring all her documents and get ready to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau. At The moment she heard Civil Affairs Bureau, Autumn panicked. The Civil Affairs Bureau? We just met. Isn't this too soon? What on earth are you thinking? I meant bring your disability certificate, ID, and other documents. We'll ask where your benefits have been going and whether you've ever received them. I stared hard at the girl in the wheelchair. Only then did Autumn realize she'd misunderstood. Things suddenly got painfully awkward. I had no choice but to wait outside, though I didn't even know what I was running from. By then, I couldn't make sense of her anymore. She seemed like a child, yet she immediately understood what going to the Civil Affairs Bureau could mean. But when it came to basic common sense, she was completely clueless. Could she really just be naturally innocent and ditzy? Surely her head wasn't actually empty inside. The thought made me shudder. Just then, Autumn cautiously poked her head out again. She visibly relaxed once she saw I was still there. Hurry up and come out. What are you staring at? If we get there any later, there'll be a line at the bureau. And if I get tired, I'll dump you out and sit in the wheelchair myself. You're so mean. Autumn was clearly scared and frantically pushed the wheels forward with both hands. I couldn't help laughing at the sight. As soon as Grandma Jo saw me, she stopped me without a word. She eyed me warily, afraid the girl might get tricked by some bad guy. Seeing this, I quickly explained. When she learned that I'd saved Autumn yesterday, Grandma Jo seemed pleasantly surprised as she looked me over and said, "This young man may be a little poor, but at least he seems honest and decent. I just feel sorry for this girl. Her grandmother passed away so suddenly, and I'm too old to help her for much longer." After saying that, Grandma Jo gave the blushing Autumn a meaningful look. Seeing this, I quickly changed the subject. "Grandma Jo, do you know where Autumn's disability benefits have been going?" But Grandma Jo said she didn't know either. "Autumn, do you remember the PIN for your grandmother's bank book?" Autumn shook her head. "Then we've got a problem." So I decided to take her to the bank and open an account for her. Then we could just switch the account her benefits were deposited into and save ourselves the trouble of making more trips later. So I wheeled Autumn straight to the bank. On the way, Autumn kept turning around to sneak glances at me. After finally working up the courage, she asked if she was going to have her own bank book. "Forget the bank book. Those aren't useful anymore." Seeing Autumn hesitate, I couldn't resist teasing her a little. But the good news is, you're getting your own bank card. It's much more convenient than a bank book. Is a bank card expensive? No, it only costs 10 yuan to get one. Is a bank card expensive? No, it only costs 10 yuan to get one. That's so expensive. That's a whole week's allowance for me. How long have you been getting that much allowance? Since middle school, I think. I took a deep breath, my heart aching for her all over again. "Don't worry. From now on, I'll find a way to help you make money. Dozens, even hundreds of times your allowance." "Really?" Autumn looked up with her adorably clueless expression. Clearly, she had no idea how much that actually was. Her innocent eyes were filled with nothing but hope that I'd keep my promise. But as soon as we entered the crowded bank, her social anxiety kicked in again. When the clerk asked what she needed help with, she stammered and frantically tugged at my sleeve like it was her only lifeline. So I signaled for Autumn to pass her ID through the little window to the clerk. Instead, Autumn stuffed her entire bag through like she was putting a coin into a vending machine. The clerk just stared in disbelief. Luckily, we still managed to get her bank card without any trouble. We even set up online banking for Autumn while we were there. That way, she wouldn't have to go downstairs every time she needed money. On the way to the Civil Affairs Bureau, Autumn kept the bank card clutched tightly in her hand. She studied it and let out a couple of happy giggles. Seeing that, I couldn't resist teasing her. "It's just a bank card. Does it really make you that happy? Be careful, or someone might think you're a gullible kid and lure you away." "You're talking nonsense. I'm not stupid. You're the only one who calls me stupid. You're the bad guy." That left me speechless. Sure enough, even the people passing by were giving me suspicious looks. Without thinking, I quickly put my hand on Autumn's head. If she kept talking, I'd probably end up at the police station. The moment I touched Autumn's head, she went completely quiet. I realized that was inappropriate, so I quickly pulled my hand away and apologized to Autumn. But Autumn blamed herself instead. It's okay. I just got a little too excited." At that moment, I wanted to chop off my disobedient hand. Autumn had just looked so adorable. I couldn't resist patting her head a few more times. I stumbled through an explanation, thinking that would be enough to get past it. But after thinking for a few seconds, Autumn suddenly asked, "Then why did you pat my head?" Her direct question caught me completely off guard. Seeing how sincere and serious Autumn was, I decided I had no choice but to be honest. "You were as cute as a little animal, so I couldn't help myself." I casually turned my head away, then snuck a glance at Autumn's reaction. To my surprise, she just said, "Oh," and turned her head away. But it looked like she was secretly smiling. I didn't think much of it. I figured she was just happy I'd called her cute. Before long, we arrived at the Civil Affairs Bureau, where a long line had already formed. Autumn looked around at all the happy couples, and suddenly asked, "Are all these people here to get married?" "Probably." I didn't dare say much, afraid I'd give her more information she didn't need. But then Autumn pointed to a gloomy-looking couple nearby. "What about them? Are they getting married too? They might be here to get divorced, or they could be taking care of something else. I'm not really sure. Want to go ask them?" Sure enough, as soon as I suggested going over, Autumn immediately lost her nerve. "You know so much. You must have been married a lot of times. Don't be ridiculous. I've never been married, and this is my first time at the Civil Affairs Bureau too. Then will I get married someday too? Maybe you will, maybe you won't. It's up to you. Then, do I get to choose someone too? A glimmer of hope appeared in Autumn's eyes, but it quickly faded. Would anyone choose me? Hearing how insecure she sounded, I suddenly felt a surge of anger. Who told you that? My mom. She said someone like me would be lucky if anyone was willing to marry me. I think she's right. I'd be happy if anyone was willing to choose me. Autumn's voice grew quieter with every word. She tightly gripped the wheelchair supporting her. I quickly bent down to comfort her. Don't think like that. You're wonderful. So wonderful that anyone who sees you would feel unworthy. Is that really true? Just look at me. I feel so unworthy that I can't even look at you. Maybe it was because I felt guilty, but I instinctively looked away from Autumn. After thinking for a moment, Autumn suddenly said, I thought you just didn't like looking at me. I'd be lying if I said I didn't. But if I said I did, things would start going in a weird direction. Now I really had no idea how to answer. Luckily, Autumn dropped the subject, but she wasn't done asking questions. Will I end up getting divorced like them someday? They all look so sad, just like mom and dad used to be. They were both so sad, like when mom and dad used to fight. I don't know. Honestly, I'd just gone through a breakup myself. Who was I to answer a question like that? Thinking about what a mess my life was, I laughed at myself, but I also felt a little down. And suddenly, I felt a small hand touch me. Don't be sad. Your hands are really big. They're big enough to cover my whole head, just like Grandpa's hands when I was little. Grandpa was a good person, so you must be one too. I couldn't help but laugh. How did this girl's strange logic connect having big hands with being a good person? But I had to admit, I'd been in a much better mood since meeting Autumn. Soon, it was our turn at the counter. But this time, I didn't wait for Autumn to speak. I spoke to the clerk first. Hi, we'd like to ask about her benefits. We'd also like to change the account they're deposited into. Please show me the necessary documents. I gave Autumn a signal while she was still staring off into space. Autumn quickly rummaged through her bag and pulled out a stack of documents. After what happened earlier, she seemed much more comfortable handing them over this time. But when the clerk asked why she wanted to change the account, Autumn froze up again. She instinctively glanced at me. But she didn't want to bother me, so she tried to answer on her own. After struggling for a while, she still couldn't get the words out. It was clear she still hadn't overcome her fear, so I quickly stepped in to help. Her grandmother passed away not long ago. Then please show me the documentation and fill out this form. No problem. Just sign it, and you'll be all set. Finally relieved, Autumn picked up the pen and started filling out the form. She picked up the pen and started filling out the form. The clerk soon broke her composure. You two are a couple, right? Why not get your marriage certificate while you're here? Newlyweds currently get rice, flour, cooking oil, a wash basin, and some eggs. That's when it hit me. I'd almost forgotten we were at the Civil Affairs Bureau. I quickly explained that we were just friends while glancing at Autumn beside me. Little did I know, Autumn's face had already turned bright red. If I hadn't stopped her in time, she would have scribbled right off the page. Before leaving, I asked the clerk and learned that the benefits would be paid in 2 days. I immediately breathed a sigh of relief. Even though it was only 1,350 yuan a month, but with my new job paying 3,000 yuan a month, at least she wouldn't go hungry this month. But after we left the Civil Affairs Bureau, I noticed she was still hung up on our earlier conversation. She seemed to be in a hurry to get married, because Grandma said that once I got married, I'd have someone by my side forever. We'd be happy together. They'd comfort me when I got hurt and accept me for who I am. Her eyes were full of hope, but I realized that all she wanted from marriage was simply someone to keep her company. Is there a certain type of person you like? You can't just spend your whole life with someone you can't stand. I haven't thought about that yet, but Grandma said, when I meet someone I want to marry, I should trick him into coming home with me and win him over with my cooking. I had to admit, her family had a pretty wild way of doing things. Thinking about her terrible cooking, I couldn't help feeling sorry for the poor guy she'd end up with. Her family really did have a pretty wild way of doing things. Thinking about her terrible cooking, I couldn't help feeling sorry for the poor guy she'd end up with. The look on my face clearly made Autumn lose confidence, but she still stubbornly insisted, I know I can make something delicious. Sure. I believe you. Worst case, I'll just drag him home and make him cook for me. That sent a shiver down my spine. I thought back to the first time Autumn and I met. Why did that sound like it was aimed at me? She seemed too innocent to be plotting anything, so I cautiously added, how is that any different from getting desperate and dragging some able-bodied man home? To my surprise, Autumn actually nodded. Wait, do you even know what that means? Why are you nodding? Granny Lee said it means dragging a strong young man home and kissing him. What on earth had that old lady been teaching this girl? When I saw Autumn's ears turn slightly red, I realized this had just gotten complicated. Autumn, do you really understand what that means? I do. I'm old enough to understand these things. Autumn lowered her head more and more, but she stubbornly kept explaining. I also know it was wrong to bring you home yesterday. But back then, you seemed just like me. I thought you needed someone too. For a moment, I stopped breathing. I pushed her wheelchair a long way before it finally sank in. She'd known from the very beginning that I might actually try something with her. But I just wanted someone to stay with me. Autumn giving up on herself reminded me exactly of who I used to be. But seeing Autumn like this only made me even angrier. Who said you had to do this just because you wanted someone around? Did you ever think about what might have happened if you'd met someone else? But you didn't do anything. Because I freaking didn't have the guts. Because I thought I was worthless. Do you think people will value something they get for free? They'll just think you're a fool. I'm sorry, but you're a good person. Tears streamed down Autumn's face. Even while I was scolding her, she still called me a good guy. I was so frustrated that I laughed, then asked Autumn directly, "So you really were planning to rope me into marrying you?" "Not at first. I just wanted someone to keep me company. Then I realized you were a good person. And after we got to the Civil Affairs Bureau, I realized this was something we could do. I'm sorry." I rushed into it. After saying that, Autumn fell completely silent. Luckily, I finally figured it out. She might seem like she understood everything, but she clearly had her priorities backward. She didn't want marriage because of love or passion. She only wanted to get married so she wouldn't be alone. I had to admit, I was tempted, but she was like a girl, standing on the edge of a cliff. Taking advantage of her while she was vulnerable was something I could never bring myself to do. So I lifted Autumn's chin and made her look me in the eye. "Let me ask you this. Do you like me?" I don't know. You don't even know if you like me, and you already want to get married. Don't you think that's ridiculous?" Autumn's lips trembled, and she looked like she was about to cry. Realizing I'd been a little too harsh, I scratched my head. "Didn't I promise I wouldn't leave? Why don't you set aside your need for companionship and take some time to get to know me and be there for me while figuring out what you really want? Before making any decisions, I can do that?" Hearing this, Autumn's eyes lit up again, as if a whole new world had opened up to her. I ruffled her hair in exasperation. "Of course. There's just something wrong with your legs. You're not dying. What's the rush?" But Autumn didn't react. Instead, her face grew redder and redder. "What's wrong? Do you have a fever?" We were too close. Coming to my senses, I quickly stepped back and apologized for being so forward. But Autumn only hesitated for a moment, before quietly saying something that made my heart skip a beat. "Then, if I make up my mind, will you choose me?" After saying that, Autumn glanced nervously at her legs. The insecurity in her eyes was impossible to hide. But the next second, her wheelchair suddenly started moving. I picked up the pace and pushed Autumn forward. "Let's go. Go, go. We're going grocery shopping. Didn't you recruit me to help? Since I'm already here, you might as well put me to work." Autumn let out a little gasp. Maybe she wanted to turn around and see if I was angry. But after hesitating for several seconds, she decided not to. In the end, she giggled and quietly repeated my words. "Since you're already here," I had to admit, she was pretty cute when she acted silly. I couldn't help reaching out again. She really was cute. I couldn't resist patting Autumn's round head again. But this time, I didn't make an excuse. I just acted like nothing had happened. "Why did you pat my head again? I already did it. What are you going to do about it? Besides, you recruited me to help you. Can't I at least pat your head?" Autumn lifted her chin slightly, sounding a little more confident. "So you think I'm cute?" Damn, this girl was getting harder and harder to fool. When I still wouldn't answer, Autumn worked up the courage to ask, "I think you're cute too. Can I pat your head?" Autumn's eyes were full of anticipation, but I was completely caught off guard. Was this girl always so direct? And how did she decide I was cute? "It was when you got mad just now. You're not into being mistreated, are you? Maybe you should see a doctor." "I'm not. Of course I'm not. I know you only got that angry because you care about me. So even though I was scared, I still thought you were cute, and you still say you're not into being mistreated." "I'm not. You know I'm not good with words. You're teasing me again. I'm not talking anymore." Once Autumn got flustered, her words started getting all tangled up again. In the end, all she could do was puff out her cheeks and pout. But at that moment, my attention wasn't on Autumn. It was on a phone store by the side of the road. After hesitating for a moment, I told Autumn to wait there. Then, I gritted my teeth and rushed inside. Before long, I rushed back out and tossed Autumn a small white box. "Is this for me?" Autumn stared at the box, too stunned to react for a long time. She stared at the box, too stunned to react for a long time. Of course. Why else would I have gone in? Consider it my apology for snapping at you earlier. I couldn't bring myself to look Autumn in the eye. I felt like a teenager giving a girl a present for the first time. "It's too expensive. I can't accept it." It wasn't expensive. It's the cheapest model. I couldn't afford a better one anyway. Autumn clearly loved the little box, but she still insisted on giving the phone back to me. I simply took a step back and stayed out of Autumn's reach. But Autumn actually rolled her wheelchair after me. I was afraid she might fall, so I had no choice but to keep talking her into it. "You've already recruited me to cook for you. The least I can do is get you a phone so I can rush home whenever you call and say you're hungry. So when you think about it, shouldn't you keep it? Is that really how it works?" "Yes, absolutely. I promise. Besides, you'll need it if you want to make money someday. You can just pay me back once you start making money." After a lot of back and forth, Autumn finally agreed to keep the phone. But she also swore that she'd pay me back once she made some money. Seeing how late it was, I started pushing her wheelchair again, getting ready to buy groceries and make dinner. At the mention of food, Autumn immediately perked up. But then she seemed to remember something and suddenly became anxious. "You're not going to give me a phone and then disappear, are you?" "No." "Then how long will you stay with me?" Ask me again after you've had enough to eat. It gets dark quickly in the fall. Seen through the attic window, the view had a charm of its own. Autumn contentedly stuck out her slightly rounded belly and stretched. Her slightly rounded belly peeked out from under her thin t-shirt. She stretched, revealing a sliver of her slim, pale waist beneath her thin t-shirt. The movement showed just how thin and frail she was. I felt like Autumn was becoming more and more comfortable around me. She seemed to notice me staring and quickly covered her belly. What are you looking at? I stared at her tiny waist and swallowed. You're so skinny. What's there to look at? Being skinny looks good. Autumn pouted in protest. Oh, so you do care about looking pretty. I couldn't help but laugh. As skinny as you are, you'd have to cling to a utility pole on a windy day. You should spend that energy eating more. I can't eat another bite. Hee. Autumn rubbed her little belly, her smile full of happiness. It seemed like having a full stomach was the happiest thing in the world to her. Are you sure you're full? I asked again. Autumn nodded firmly, and her eyes suddenly lit up. Then can I ask you a question? I jolted and jumped to my feet before she could continue. You're full? Then I'm heading out. I'll come feed you again tomorrow. You're cheating. I have no idea what you're talking about. All I wanted was to avoid the question I'd barely managed to dodge earlier, whether I would choose her. The truth was, I already knew the answer, but considering what a mess I was, I couldn't even get my own life together. How could I give her a real answer? Most kids from poor families have insecurity etched into their bones. How was I any better than this silly girl in front of me? But I couldn't deny the powerful desire rising inside me at that moment. I wanted money. I wanted the confidence to hold my head high, and the means to live life on my own terms for once. But for now, all I could do was dream. Autumn seemed to notice the light fading from my eyes. She opened her mouth, but in the end, she said nothing. It wasn't until I shook my head and turned to leave that she blurted out, "Can you stay?" I stopped in my tracks. I'd lost count of how many times she'd asked me to stay. But when it came to this girl, who was like a silly little cat, I always found myself being more patient. What is it? What's your reason this time? I glanced back, my tone casual. You don't have anywhere to stay, do you? Autumn wanted to look at me, but couldn't bring herself to raise her head. How did you know? After a long silence, I let out a resigned sigh. You smell. Autumn mumbled quietly. Only then did I realize I hadn't changed clothes since getting soaked in the rain yesterday. I'd forgotten to shower too. I still made one last attempt to defend myself. Couldn't I just be a slob? Then why did you clean the kitchen so thoroughly? The kitchen is sparkling. Okay, you win. I raised my hands in complete surrender. That still won't work, I insisted. Have you thought about where I'd live? I can't exactly squeeze in with you. Even if I slept on the floor, wouldn't it be awkward when you got up to use the bathroom at night? And are you really sure I wouldn't develop feelings for you? My tone softened. I know you're only doing this because you feel sorry for me. Okay, I understand. Autumn nodded obediently, then asked, so you're admitting you have feelings for me? I nearly choked and instinctively took a step back. I never expected this girl to catch on so fast. I rubbed my temples, completely defeated. I rubbed my temples hard. I didn't dare answer her directly, but I didn't deny it either. Could you please stop staring at me with those innocent eyes while asking that kind of question in such an innocent tone? You're making me feel guilty. Autumn looked away. Then what should I do? Yes, I admit you're beautiful and innocent. Sometimes you can be a little frustrating, but in an adorable way. Any normal man would be attracted to you. I took 2 steps forward, crouched down, and looked at her seriously. But that's exactly why I need to control myself even more. Do you understand? I understand. Autumn nodded obediently, then tilted her head and asked, then, if I develop feelings for you first, you won't have to feel guilty, right? I was completely stunned, but as I stood there in a daze, I felt something cool and soft touch my cheek. By the time I came to my senses, all I saw was her delicate, fair face, quickly pulling away and turning visibly red. But she stood her ground, staring at me stubbornly, as if determined to get an answer. I instinctively touched my cheek, then shot to my feet. Wait, what are you doing? Do you even realize what you just did? I couldn't worry about my tangled feelings anymore. I know I'm not very smart and that I'm confused about a lot of things. I don't even know what you're supposed to do when you like someone. Autumn stumbled over her words, but it was clear she was serious. But I'm sure I'll try my best to fall in love with you someday. I borrowed these feelings for you from my future self. So one little kiss should be okay, right? After saying that, her courage finally gave out, and she quickly lowered her head. I was speechless, my brain nearly short-circuited. After struggling for words, I finally managed to ask, you can do that? Yes, I can. Autumn nodded confidently. I can borrow money from you for a phone and pay you back when I have the money. So why can't I borrow some feelings from my future self? So I'm the one who taught her this after all? I had a feeling my own words were about to come back and hit me. As soon as I realized what she meant, I quickly cut her off. Wait, how are those two things the same? Who borrows feelings from their future self? Isn't that basically what a mortgage is? Autumn muttered. Besides, if I borrow from myself, I won't have to pay it back. Don't use all your clever little tricks on me. Then I'll use them on someone else. Autumn suddenly tilted her head. No, I regretted it the second I blurted it out and immediately slapped myself across the mouth. Autumn burst out laughing. She'd obviously said that on purpose. So now you don't mind that I stink? I forced myself to look stern. Who taught you all this? Grandma Joe? Autumn shrank back a little. I've already roped you into this. You're supposed to scrub my back anyway. As I was muttering to myself, I felt someone push me from behind. The girl had slipped behind me without me noticing and was pushing me with all her might. Go take a shower. It's not good to smell bad. Autumn looked like she was trying hard, but she really wasn't very strong. I took a couple of token steps forward. You really want me to live here? Are you sure? Autumn froze for a couple of seconds. You really want me to live here? Are you sure? Because I've already borrowed your affection from the future. So for now, I'm the one who has feelings for you. You don't have to feel pressured. Come on. That's really not how this works. My head was starting to hurt, and I began speaking without thinking. You can't know what'll happen in the future. How do you know you borrowed affection and not dislike? For all we know, we might become strangers before long. Autumn lowered her head and fell silent. I realized I'd hit her where she was most vulnerable. But before I could say anything, Autumn spoke first. Then how can we prove it? Can we do it one more time? Are you getting addicted to this or something? I nearly lost it and immediately threw both hands up. I believe you, okay? Autumn nodded firmly, looking a little smug. She was clearly willing to listen to reason. How much of it actually sank in was another question. Then stay here until you find a place of your own, okay? You have to live somewhere anyway. She looked at me expectantly. Can you give me a good enough reason? I took a deep breath. As helpless as I felt against her, I also wanted a reason to convince myself. After thinking for a long time, Autumn finally answered hesitantly but firmly. I don't want anyone to take you away from me. You really did come up with something. I struggled to force out one word. Okay. You're not lying to me, are you? Autumn's eyes widened. I avoided her eyes, grabbed the package from the corner, and rushed into the bathroom. I'm going to take a shower. The bathroom door closed, followed by the sound of running water and my scream. Damn, it's cold water. 10 minutes later, I came out wearing clean clothes. The wheelchair tracks on the floor had already been wiped clean. Somehow, Autumn had gotten down on the floor and was quietly waiting for me. I dried my hair with a towel. You cleaned the floor, but why did you get out of your wheelchair? When Autumn saw me, she looked up with a smile. So I could be a little closer to you. My heart seemed to skip a beat. How was I supposed to handle her being so direct? I tried to calm my racing heart and quietly sat down beside her. I noticed the phone box sitting on the small table, still sealed in plastic. You just sat here waiting? Yeah. Is something wrong? Autumn didn't see anything strange about it. I couldn't imagine how lonely and boring her daily life must be. I instinctively glanced beside me. Only then did I realize just how petite this girl, who was always in a wheelchair, really was. Don't you ever find something fun to pass the time? Just sitting around like this must be so boring. I kept imagining you sitting beside me, so I wasn't bored. Autumn looked up at me, her big eyes sparkling brightly. I felt that impulse again and quickly changed the subject. That's all the more reason to learn how to use a phone. Look, you're so bored that you're imagining things. Is that what it is? Yes, absolutely. I insisted, leaving no room for doubt. Now, let's check out your phone. I picked up the phone box and shoved it into her arms. Autumn held the box and turned it over and over, studying it. She picked at it with her fingernails a few times, but nothing happened. Then, she actually tried to bite it open. Can't you use a key to open it? I put a hand to my forehead. Okay. Autumn obediently took out a key and started poking at the package. Pop. The box sprang open. A shiny black screen lay inside. She took out the key and started poking at it. The box popped open. A shiny black screen lay inside. She carefully lifted it out. Her big eyes grew brighter the longer she looked at it. Do you like it? Seeing her like this, I couldn't help but smile. I love it. Autumn slowly tilted her head up to look at me. Her big, sparkling eyes stared right at me. If you like it, hurry up and open it. I instinctively looked away as my heart started racing. This girl always used her ultimate move like it was a basic attack. Having a girl who felt so familiar stare at me up close hit me like a nuclear bomb. Luckily, smartphones were pretty easy to use. The setup tutorial taught Autumn the basics. I think I got it. She looked at me excitedly. Her face clearly said, now praise me. Not bad. You're pretty smart. I praised her without holding back and casually ruffled her round little head. Autumn didn't say anything. It was like she was used to this kind of affection, but also startled by how familiar it felt. She just sat there, frozen in the same position, until I awkwardly pulled my hand back and she finally spoke again. What about me is cute? I still wasn't used to how direct this girl was, and I honestly couldn't understand how she could ask such a deadly question with a face that practically screamed cute. My instinct to dodge the question kicked in again, and I started talking nonsense. Sure, you're cute, but you also know how to blow up a rice cooker. Autumn looked dejected for a moment, then managed to cheer herself up. Hehe, you think I'm cute? Stop grinning. Let's add each other and go to sleep. I quickly pulled out my phone. Add each other on what? QQ or WeChat? You know about those? Do you have QQ or WeChat? Autumn was easily distracted again. You actually know about those? I suddenly didn't know what to say. No, wait. It would be weird if she didn't know about them. But given her situation, she probably heard her classmates talking about them. She pulled out an old PHS phone and waved it at me. I have QQ too. I glanced at the screen on that ancient phone and saw that it was just an empty shell of a discontinued service. Then, I finally looked at the user ID. Autumn can't cook. I can cook now. Autumn's face instantly turned red, She snatched the phone back and held it close. Yeah, I know. I held back a laugh. I just didn't know how to cook rice, that's all. I can make scrambled eggs. Autumn excitedly tried to scoot across the floor, but she lost her balance and fell right into my arms. That's what you get for showing off. My voice suddenly trailed off. My hands hovered in midair, unsure where to put them. I didn't know whether to help her up or not. Worst of all, after falling, the silly girl just buried her face in my lap and wouldn't move. Was she really going to keep playing dead? Finally, I couldn't help but ask, how long are you planning to stay there? Autumn. I want to sleep. Then go sleep in your room. My throat went dry, and my voice came out strange. Autumn. I don't have any strength left. Can you carry me back? Autumn murmured softly. Get up and go back yourself. I tried to sound stern. Maybe it was just my imagination, but it felt like she was being clingy. Then I'll just sleep here. Hey, don't be like that. I couldn't take this anymore. Forget whether she could handle it. If this kept up, I probably wouldn't be able to use my leg tomorrow. Fine, you win again, I said through gritted teeth. Autumn, stop pretending. Fine, you win again, I said through gritted teeth. Autumn snuck a glance at my resigned expression, then quietly held out both arms. She clearly wanted me to pick her up. Feeling a headache coming on, I carefully scooped her up into a bridal carry. This little piglet, playing dead and acting cute, was way too light. When her arms automatically wrapped around my neck, my irritation flared up. You really use all your little tricks on me, don't you? I don't care. Autumn instinctively curled up and buried her face in my chest. Now that you've kissed me and held me, you can't leave. If you do, I'll cry. My heart skipped a beat, and I let out a long sigh. I already told you I'm not leaving. You really don't have to do this. I turned off the light and walked out. A faint murmur came from inside the room. Good night. Just hearing her voice, I could picture her smiling like a fool. Good night, I replied to the empty air. I plopped down beside the wheelchair. In the end, the friend request still hadn't gone through. Before leaving, I messed with my phone for ages, only to find that the 10 yuan I just added was already gone. I only had a quarter of a yuan in phone credit left. There wasn't even a decent cheap data plan. I might as well get internet installed another day. I stared at the ceiling, spread out the bedding, and lay down. But no matter how much I tossed and turned, I couldn't sleep. It wasn't until I actually lay there that I realized just how hard this girl's life really was. When I took a shower, I found out she didn't even have a water heater. How was she going to make it through the winter? Air conditioning was completely out of the question. The only thing in the whole place was an old fan gathering dust in the corner. My mind was racing, and I tossed and turned for a long time. I had to go outside and smoke several cigarettes before I finally managed to fall asleep. At dawn, I suddenly woke up like some internal alarm had gone off. I got out of bed in a panic. I hurriedly checked the time, only to see it was 6. I looked around and remembered that I was in this unfamiliar home. I quietly cooked some rice and a few dishes, washed up, and got ready to leave. But when I grabbed the doorknob, I suddenly felt empty inside. I instinctively looked back at the bedroom door. That empty feeling eased quite a bit. I realized what I'd forgotten, quickly pulled out a sticky note, and started writing. I have to go to work. There's rice in the cooker, and I made enough food for 2 meals. I tiptoed over to the door and stuck the note on it. After thinking about it, I still didn't feel it was enough. So I wrote a few more and put them where they'd be easy to see. Only then did I feel comfortable leaving. As soon as I stepped outside, I called an internet installer and arranged for him to come that afternoon. Then I headed straight to that shady-looking shop. At exactly 8, I stood outside the shop and stared thoughtfully at the tightly closed metal shutter. Had it gone out of business? I waited nearly another hour before I finally heard a familiar voice. Hey, old man, what are you doing here so early? Meditating? Not far away, Lily was holding breakfast and shouting energetically at me. Boss, what time do you even open? It's 9 already. Showing up an hour early should be plenty diligent, right? I felt a wave of frustration building in my chest with nowhere to go. By the way, have you eaten breakfast? Come have some with me. Lily waved the food in her hand, then noticed all the cigarette butts on the ground. Seriously, old man? Half a pack in an hour? Aren't you worried about getting lung cancer? Let's go inside and eat first. I silently crushed my cigarette butt under my shoe. After breakfast, my boss actually got me to play video games with her. 2 days into the job, I still hadn't done any actual work. Having nothing to do made me extremely uneasy. Boss, shouldn't we do some actual work? I'm starting to feel a little uneasy. I finally couldn't hold it in any longer. Actual work? What work? What are you so nervous about? I honestly didn't know how to explain it, so I forced myself to say, I'm just worried I'll get fired if I can't contribute anything as an employee. That's all? She counted on her fingers as she explained concepts like attention value, economic value, and emotional value. Then she scanned my payment code and transferred me 3,000 yuan as my salary. You're just worried you won't get paid, right? I'll pay you up front. Lily tossed her phone aside. I was speechless for a long moment. Why did it have to be me? Because I'm cheap and useful, I guess. And kind of clueless. Lily's eyes lit up. Oh, and I just realized you're the type I can mold. This could be fun. Over the next few days, Lily took me shopping for clothes and got my hair done. She managed to turn me from a sloppy office drone into someone much more presentable. I even ran into my ex-girlfriend Mia in the shopping district. When she saw me alone, she smugly assumed I'd been waiting there for her. Just as things got awkward, Lily showed up with some ice cream. She immediately went after Mia in a fake sweet voice. Well, look at you. You're already his ex, but you're still acting like his girlfriend. She ripped open the ice cream, shoved it into my mouth, and gave Mia a challenging wink. This brooding young guy is my little project. Mia was left speechless and eventually stormed off in a rage. Thanks. I scratched my head awkwardly. Just the basics. No need to be impressed, man. Lily casually waved it off and leaned closer. But you have terrible taste. You actually fell for a gold digger. I clutched my head, already starting to suffer. My head was already starting to ache. All right, I won't rub salt in the wound. It was already noon when we got back to the shop. Once the printer gets here, you'd better work hard. You got it. The moment I heard the word work, I instantly perked up. Then I started thinking. I wondered if the girl back home had been eating properly. What if she got bored and went out by herself? What if I got home late and she thought I'd left her again? As my thoughts wandered, I slowly realized that whenever I was with her, time seemed to pass pretty quickly. For some reason, that thought made me want to avoid it. So instead of going straight home, I headed to the apartment I'd rented before. I packed up my clothes, toiletries, and old computer. Then I returned to the apartment complex, pulling my suitcase behind me. From a distance, I saw Grandma Zhou waving up ahead. Young man, you're back. Out for another walk? I forced myself to respond. Just seeing that old lady makes me nervous. When I reached the building, I suddenly froze. A familiar head sneakily peeked out from the entrance. When she saw me, she ducked back inside like a kid playing hide and seek. I pretended not to see her and casually headed toward the elevator. As I rounded the corner, a little hand quietly reached out and grabbed the back of my hand. Huh? Why did you come downstairs? I pretended to be surprised. Grandma Zhou said. Autumn stammered, her cheeks turning red all the way to her ears. I heard men are happy when they get off work and see their wives waiting for them. I'm just practicing for the future. My heart sank. Oh no, she'd come up with another one of her ideas. Aren't you happy? When I didn't answer, Autumn carefully glanced at me. She cautiously snuck a glance at me. I am. I realized I couldn't take my eyes off her. Am I your wife now? I smacked my forehead. Sure enough, this dummy thought making me happy meant she was my wife. Who told you that's how those two things work? And who said you could come downstairs alone? What if you fell? I squished her cheeks like crazy. With just one sentence, Autumn completely shut me down. Are you worried about me? Yes. Of course I'm worried. For once, I was honest. Those stairs don't have any safety measures. If anything happened to you, I'd be devastated. I'm sorry. Autumn lowered her head. You don't need to apologize. I'll find a way to install a stair lift as soon as possible. Until then, can you be patient? Autumn nodded firmly. I just missed you. I instinctively covered my eyes. Sometimes this girl was just way too awkward. She kept saying she didn't understand what it meant to like someone. But she always caught me off guard with words that went straight to my heart. I missed you too. I tried to say it as casually as possible, but even I felt dazed afterward. Really? Autumn replied with sparkling eyes. Have you been eating well? I'd used up all my courage, so I changed the subject again. I have. Autumn patted her slightly rounded belly. I'm nice and full. I guided her into the elevator, my mind clearly somewhere else. I was about to call someone to install the internet, but before I could finish, Autumn's voice rang out in the elevator. Are we a couple now? My temples started throbbing. The impulsive words rolled around in my throat. But in the end, I said, I don't know what couples are supposed to be like. I guess they eat together and spend all their time together. And they kiss, cuddle, and lift each other up. I almost slapped myself after saying that, because we'd already checked almost every box. Seeing Autumn get more and more ideas, I quickly added, most important thing is that they like each other. Autumn's head drooped again. Then, when are you going to like me? Can you ask me something I can actually answer? You don't even understand it yourself, so how can you ask me? After I stepped out of the elevator, Autumn shrugged and said confidently, I can borrow some. You think this works like Huawei credit? You could borrow some too. Just go inside and stay there. I'm going grocery shopping. I said that, shut the door, and lit a cigarette with trembling hands. Where had things gone wrong? But when I was honest with myself, I realized I seemed to have fallen for her too. But did I deserve her? When that question came up again, for some reason, the 3,000 yuan paycheck I just received gave me a confidence I couldn't explain. Could 3,000 yuan really make someone this cocky? Then again, I'd dated just fine before, when I only made a few thousand yuan a month. Screw it. The more I thought about it, the more frustrated I got, until my fear turned into defiance. What the hell was I afraid of? We'd already kissed and hugged. We'd already sealed the deal. It wasn't like she'd run away now. Even if I got hurt, I'd accept it. Instead of obsessing over all this pointless stuff, I should focus on building a good life. Things had already gotten this far out of control. I couldn't just walk away anymore. Besides, if she could work up the courage to do all that, I'd be a complete bastard if I kept chickening out. On my way to buy groceries, I called the internet installer ahead of time. While the internet was being installed, Autumn was too nervous around the stranger to come out of her room. She quietly opened the door only after the technician had left. You weren't this scared when you dragged me back here. That was different. How was it different? You're handsome. You're just my type, and you look even better today. So you only went after me because of my looks. Flustered, Autumn started babbling nonsense. I don't care. I caught you, so you're mine. Well, look who's learned to play dirty. I teased her. I connected her phone to the Wi-Fi and helped her download a messaging app. As soon as she logged into QQ, a flood of messages popped up. All from that friend of hers. The earliest messages went back several years. The last one, sent 2 weeks ago, was a message paying respects to the dead. I scrolled through all the messages, my finger trembling over the keyboard. A close friend? I asked softly. She nodded shakily. She's a close friend from school. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye before I left. That made me stop and think. When I didn't say anything, Autumn immediately panicked. She's a woman. Please don't leave me. Why are you so nervous? It's obvious she's a woman. I glanced at her friend's hideous meme avatar. After fumbling with the keyboard forever, Autumn finally sent a single word. Wow. The other person went ballistic. You finally come back from the dead after 6 years, and all I get is one word? Autumn typed another message. Autumn typed another message. After Autumn replied, oh, the other person went completely silent. Then Autumn thought carefully for a moment and slowly typed out, I picked up a man. He bought me a phone. I quietly lowered the hand I'd just raised. Forget it. Let it all burn. Put those two together, and they still wouldn't make half a normal person. But as time went on, Autumn and I grew closer. Before bed, she'd ramble on and say things so sweet they were almost too much. Then she'd fall asleep before I had a chance to respond. She'd secretly draw while curled up in my arms, drawing me as her cat servant and herself as a little white kitten. Whenever I got angry, she'd shrink back in fear but still stubbornly refused to give in. We had a few arguments too. The worst one was when she said yet again, you can leave. Don't let me hold you back. I immediately lost my temper and gave her a good scolding. But later, I realized I wasn't any better than she was. I kept obsessing over whether I was good enough for her. After that fight, we actually became closer. As Grandma Joe later said, if two people never argue, they can never truly learn to get along. I took her to the hospital to have her leg checked. The doctor said it was a lasting effect of polio. If she'd been treated in time, she'd be almost as mobile as anyone else by now. But a full course of stem cell therapy would cost 100,000 to 200,000 yuan. Autumn immediately said she didn't want treatment. She said having me was enough. I didn't agree or refuse. I just told her we could slowly save up for it. To help Autumn make money, I bought her a drawing tablet and a phone. Then I helped her set up an account to take art commissions. To our surprise, someone commissioned her as soon as she uploaded her artwork. Someone commissioned her right after she posted her artwork. It was a struggling novelist who wanted portraits of their characters. Each commission paid 50 yuan. It wasn't much, but for Autumn, it was the first money she'd ever earned on her own. When she got paid, she was absolutely thrilled. Summer, I made money. She held her phone up in front of me, proudly showing off the 40 yuan payment. That's great. I ruffled her hair. Autumn grinned from ear to ear. Could you call me something else when you praise me? Call you what? I played dumb. You want me to call you my wife? No, silly. Your wife wants to hear her husband praise her. We made it official. She was too cute, but I still blushed as I said it. My wife is amazing. Autumn's eyes slowly widened, and then she threw herself into my arms. She let out a sweet little hum. My husband is the best. You helped me find something that's right for me. Thank you, honey. I was keeping busy too. Lily gave me a blank figure, which gave me the idea to turn licensed soft vinyl figures into articulated models and make social media content about the process. I went to see my college roommate, Luke, and bought modeling putty, spray paint, and paint from his hardware store. I also brought home an old computer. Autumn showed an incredible talent for making models. In less than half an hour, she helped me solve several technical problems. She even colored the model with watercolor markers. Does this look okay? She looked up at me nervously. It was far better than I'd imagined. She looked up at me nervously. It was way beyond my expectations. I pulled her into my arms. Autumn leaned against me while she drew. She drew scenes from our daily life. A little white cat with a round head clung to her owner. The owner pretended to be annoyed but was secretly smiling. She came up with a name for her account. Summer and Autumn in the attic. I was Summer, and she was Autumn. She wrote both of our names on it. On the unfinished starry wall in her room, she had painted a fish swimming freely through the galaxy, and a crab stuck on the ground, desperately trying to leap into the galaxy. She had drawn herself as the crab, longing for freedom but stuck in place. The moment I understood the painting, my throat went painfully dry. Do you see anything? Her voice was flatter than I'd ever heard it. I see the crab, the galaxy, and those few bright stars. She smiled like a withered tree coming back to life in spring, like a frozen river beginning to thaw. Summer, I think I've really fallen for you. Me too, I answered in a daze. Then, she fell asleep in my arms. After hesitating for a moment, I couldn't resist brushing back her hair and gently kissing her forehead. Only then did I carefully pull my arm free, close the door, and leave. And so the days went by. Autumn started getting more and more commissions. She started learning how to make animated stickers, turning our story into a series about the daily life of the owner and the little white cat. I was also figuring out how to create online content by filming, the model modification process, and editing it into short videos. I experimented with creating online content by filming the model modification process and editing it into short videos. The numbers were still pretty bad, but at least I'd taken the first step. One weekday, Lily suddenly called me over and said it was urgent. When I said goodbye to Autumn, she held onto the doorframe as usual and reminded me, "You'll come back, right? If you're really worried I'll run off, I can just stay home." I smiled and waved my phone. "Go on, just come back soon." When I got to the shop, Lily told me with a mysterious look that she'd decided to turn me into a real player. I wouldn't just build models and make videos. She would teach me how to think like a real entrepreneur. What's your goal? To take it easy and coast through life. With a goal like that, you'll never have a stable life. Lily started teaching me, from her prepaid card theory to making my first real profit, and from the attention economy to finding my own niche. Don't you have things you're passionate about too? Why did you choose this major? After hesitating for a moment, I told her how obsessed I'd been with tokusatsu models as a kid. So you're an anime nerd too. You're the last person who gets to make fun of me for that. My expression suddenly turned serious. Lily paused and gave me another look. She tossed me the blank figure and told me to figure it out myself. Do I really have to spell everything out for you? On the way home, I fiddled with the figure and wondered, had my boss seen this coming all along? Meanwhile, Autumn and her friend Lily were chatting away on their phones. Autumn and Lily, her friend, were chatting away on their phones. Autumn told her our whole story from beginning to end, including how she'd secretly watched me near the funeral home, how she'd bought an umbrella, worked up the courage to hold it over my head, and used all kinds of excuses to trick me into going home with her. After hearing the whole story, Lily nearly jumped off the couch. What I didn't know was that Autumn's best friend and my unreliable boss were actually the same person. One day, Grandma Jo fell and got hurt, so Autumn and I rushed to the hospital. The moment she saw Grandma Jo lying in bed with a cast, Autumn burst into tears. "Grandma Jo, I'm here." She wheeled herself over as fast as she could, and Grandma Jo pressed a bank book into my hand. I didn't find out until later that the account held all the money Autumn's grandmother had saved over the years, plus what Grandma Jo had added, for a total of nearly 30,000 yuan. When Autumn saw the bank book, she broke down sobbing. They'd said there was no money for her treatment, but the money had been there all along. I couldn't think of anything to say to comfort her. Later, Autumn made a decision I never expected. She held the bank book out to me. "You decide how to use it and what to spend on me. It's your money. I'm not good at managing it. You're the one taking care of me, so you should manage it. This shows that I trust and accept you." Even though I don't know if my acceptance matters to you, I stayed silent for a long time, but finally took it. "All right." I smiled and flicked her forehead. "Then don't change your mind." Autumn quickly wheeled herself backward, as if she were trying to get away from the bank book. "You're the one who can't change your mind, or I'll get mad." She proudly lifted her chin and gave a mock angry huff, but it sounded more cute than threatening. "Okay, I won't change my mind either." I put the bank book away. At that moment, I suddenly felt that maybe the luckiest thing in my life was meeting a silly girl in a wheelchair that night, holding up an umbrella with trembling hands to shield me from the rain. Snuggled in my arms, Autumn murmured softly, "Summer, I want to keep drawing our story forever. Our life now, our future. No matter what it becomes, I want to keep drawing it all." "Okay." I gently rubbed her head. The autumn wind outside was getting colder, but the warmth in my arms was just right. That night, I tossed and turned under the covers. She was curled up against my chest like a little animal, breathing steadily. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Lily. "Are you busy today? If not, get over here. Finish this job, and I'll make you a permanent employee." I looked at the silly girl in my arms, then at my phone. Early the next morning, I made breakfast, left a note, and headed out. Autumn clung to the doorframe and sweetly called out, "Honey, come home early." I kept walking without looking back, but I was already grinning from ear to ear. As I rode a shared bike to the shop, the chilly wind blew down my collar, but my heart was warm. When I got to the shop, I found a note taped to the roll-up door. "Hang tight, yours truly is on the way."